Hi there, this is Harrison Bloom. I'm very glad you decided to take a look at my video, because today I have a very special guest with me. For those of you who don't know, my channel and my website that goes along with it, Bloom for Change, are both part of my high school action research project. The subject of which, in my case, is the issues of sexual and domestic violence. And I'm so glad you've gotten the help of the wonderful Dr. Nancy Kislin. She's a therapist who works in Chatham, New Jersey, and she was wonderful to answer a few questions for me and hopefully give some insight on this very sensitive topic. So, if you have the time, take a look. Thank you. So, in your experience as a therapist, how often have you had patients who have been victims of abuse or rape? If, depending on that, what is the ratio of men to women victims, and what's the age range?
Okay, so, I guess let's do it one at a time. Sorry. So, first half of the question?
So in your experience as a therapist, how often, or if so, have you had patients who have been victims of abuse or rape?
I've never, it's not true. I've only had 1, 2, 3, I guess pretty much like 1 a year. I don't know how to break it down, though, But, usually at some point during the year, I've had only ever females who have been sexually assaulted / raped. Most of the time, those cases were all, unfortunately, incest. Whether it be someone, a relative, uncle,
really?
Something like that. And that is, what was the second part of the question? How old were the people, roughly?
Roughly like an age range or something.
I would say there were women who were in their mid-30s and older. So they didn't come, it had happened in their youth, and they were coming for help for whatever other reason. And then as I started working, I would get that, I would find that out.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
interesting, right?
Yes.
Very interesting.
In fact, considering that, assuming that this has just kind of come out during other sessions, what are the signs? How have victims cope with this kind of trauma?
Good question, yeah. I would say that it would, to me, I would start digging is the word I use, but you know what I mean? Start probing questions. If there would be some kind of intimacy issues with their significant other, husband, boyfriend, whatever, either or people were obviously displaying some kind of abandonment issues. That sometimes was a clue to me to start digging around. Sometimes it was, if I think of one, it was a struggle with her son. She was much more comfortable with her daughter than she was with her son.
So it has.
She knew that was a problem. So yeah, I think one of the reasons sometimes people don't say they're coming to therapy because they were molested when they were young, but as I start doing the work, I find it. But I think this one lady I'm thinking of, she definitely knew she needed to deal with her relationship with her son, so she didn't, mess him up at all or whatever you want to call it. Don't use those words. That wasn't very professional. Sorry.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. It's been a long day.
So is that next question or?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Very interesting. So, in your opinion, how hard is it generally for a victim to recover from an experience such as this? What are some steps a victim can usually take to move on? And are there ways we can help, like not as non-professionals in this situation?
Okay, so let's start with that last one, and we'll go backwards, if that's okay?
Yes.
So what can you do, what can a non-professional do in terms of, let's make these specific, prevention, like key, right? Convention, prevention, sorry. And also the other word I would say is education and awareness, right? Which is sort of what you're trying to do.
Yes.
And so, and acceptance, right? So, like, say, my generation, nobody would talk about these things. I'm sure clearly they happen because these women pretty much around what age I am now, you know? And so people, it happened, but people didn't talk about it. Like, there was no website to go to, right? So one thing is, what can the community do? Yes, it's sort of, to me, the biggest thing is I'm all about education, awareness equals prevention, right? Education, awareness, right?
Right.
So one is, you know, I have 2 daughters. I always taught them, even though they'd be like, Mom, stop talking about that, right? You know, that's our job as parents to make our kids embarrassed. But I always taught them that if someone makes them uncomfortable in any way, I wouldn't give too much information at a young age. If anyone ever makes you uncomfortable, you have the right to say no and to walk away, you know? Just like I'm sure your mom said, you know, never get in cars with strangers, right? That was, I sort of added that extra piece. And I think you're a teenager, whether I was the parent of a son or a daughter, it still goes the same. Like, you can't stop teaching that message, you know? And that could be like a cool campaign as part of your project is, it's okay to say to someone, you know, you're making me uncomfortable, whatever your words are, right? But, you know, I see too many young people in my practice that are afraid to kind of, I call it set the limit, say no. Just because everyone thinks everyone is doing everything, you fill in the blanks, right? Doesn't mean that everyone, trust me, is really not doing it all, you know? And so that we have to respect, it comes to respect each other. That we don't, you know, it's okay to say no. I mean, one of the biggest fears I had as a mom was sending my daughter away to college and worrying about, you know, sexual assault and date rape.
Right, it's a huge, it's a huge issue on college.
I armed my daughters with mace, you know, the pepper spray. I'm sure they never carried it around. But one of my daughters went to school in Baltimore, so she might have carried it around. But the other thing, did you hear about or did you see the movie that I just brought you down last week, The Mask You Live In?
No.
I wish you would have seen it. It's this amazing movie about, you can check out the trailer. It's called The Mask You Live In, and it's about the crisis of masculinity in America and what's happening to our boys. And it has this whole piece, so fascinating, on the typical teenage boy is watching 40 hours of TV a week. Of that time is like 15 plus hours video games or gaming. And 2 hours a week they're watching porn. But a lot of the porn, 90% I think they said of the porn that they're watching was, you know, very, I guess, abusive, destructive, not respectful sex. And they said that by the time a girl today comes of age, by the time she's 25, 1 in 5 girls will be sexually assaulted. I mean, that's a staggering number and quite terrifying. But also it said that because of all the interviews that they're not being raised to be that way. But we can have conversations like that, right? Like, I'm sure I gave you a lot of facts to chew on for a while, right?
Right.
That's a lot of, right? And so, like today, I had a 19-year-old kid in my office. He's just home from college, and I sort of brought up some of those statistics, and but you know, we talked about it, and you know, I kind of brought up, and the things he said to me kind of reiterated how the culture out there, certainly on some college campuses, is so disrespectful to boys and girls, which is sort of what you're talking about, right?
Right.
If I really respect you, I'm not going to do something to you that's not in your, you're not agreeing with me,
It's all
right?
about respect, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, so one, what did I say? Prevention, education, awareness. Is that a good answer? But I know you had a question after that. Totally forgot.
Well, you impressively, you kind of took over the interview. Let me see. Do you recommend anywhere an interviews person can go to for help? Like professionally, I'm thinking like charity organizations or therapists such as yourself. Just ideas, yeah.
Well, there's great websites that I'm sure you can find, like a lot of the sites. There's a really good program. I don't know if you've ever seen them come to school, but it's called the National Council of Jewish Women do a teen dating program. Mm-hmm. They go into different high schools. I used to do that for them as a volunteer, and that's actually a really good program. They show a very outdated film, but it's sort of. The other thing is really, I also encourage kids if they're involved in a church or a synagogue. There's always people there they could go talk to, guidance counselor. I think another question that comes up a lot is oh my God, Nancy, my friend told me that this happened to them, and now you're the holder of this horrible information. Mm-hmm. What do you do then? And I encourage those kids to do the same. Go to a guidance counselor, go to someone in your synagogue, church. Because I don't think that any of us, including me, things I had a really scary case yesterday where I wasn't sure the kid was okay or not. I call a psychiatrist that I say, can I send this kid over to you? I'm not sure they're okay. So I feel as an educator and a therapist, we need to educate you guys that it's okay to ask for help. And that you don't have to, it's okay to be a good friend, but sometimes you gotta share, Does that answer?
Yes. Also, so, I believe you kind of said this before, but let me just ask in a different way. What are some ways to identify an abusive relationship, if amongst a friend or family?
Okay, good question. Let's see. So if you're worried that your friend, girl or boy, is involved in an unhealthy relationship, what are some signs? That's the question?
I mean, how can we identify how...
Yeah, right. So if your friends, all of a sudden, if they used to have a good appetite and they don't have an appetite, if they used to not drink or get high or do anything else, and all of a sudden they started really, kind of using and abusing drugs and alcohol. If there's any kind of behavior that just seems different, if they used to be happy-go-lucky and now they seem withdrawn and depressed and they don't want to go out a lot, you don't know what's going on. You don't have to be the therapist, but you can kind of say, hey, you want to talk about it, want to go for a walk. If they don't respond to you, that's when I always say, go to your guidance counselor, go to somebody at the school and say, I'm worried about my friend, blah, blah, blah.
Just don't be afraid.
If you're out, if I think back to when I was in high school, my next door neighbor, she had been a good friend of mine until we got to high school, but then she sort of got into drugs, and I didn't. And we all knew she was going out with the captain of the football team who had the brain the size of a pea and was rumored to be abusive, but none of us did anything. He was a really big guy, and she wasn't a big girl. And then I'll never, ever forget this. We were at a party, and I heard her screaming, and I'd known her since I was born, and I, ran out front, and she was on the ground, and he was, literally, I'm, the most nonviolent person. I can't even kill a bug, seriously, unless it's about to bite me. And he was just smacking her and punching her, and she was like begging him. And I remember being frozen, and my boyfriend went to her, and I remember saying, like, someone do something, but we all just somehow stood there. And to the day I die, I won't understand, like, why we froze. Like, granted, he was bigger than all of us, but and then eventually he like ran off, and she ran off and got in the car with him. It was so awful. And so that sort of speaks to the story, right? What do you do? Right there, like today with phones, I would be like, I'm taking a picture of them videotaping, right? I would say, I'm videotaping you. Would call 911. You know what I mean? Like, there's a million things you guys can do that we couldn't do. But we should have, someone could have run in the house and called the police, right?
Right.
But it was so out of anything I ever knew. But when I got to college, there was a girl that used to come to I'm old enough that we were able to drink at 18, so there was like a tavern on campus. And my friend worked at the tavern, and every day there was a girl that would go to the bar, and she was clearly anorexic looking. And one day my friend stuck her a note on her, like, whatever, salad, and said, like, here's a hotline to call for help. Here's my number if you want help. Like, and I was so impressed by my friend that she sort of had it took a lot of guts to say, here, I noticed you. You seem in pain. I'm here to help. Like, sometimes that's all people need, to know they're not alone. So I guess that's right.
That's exactly right. That's, I think, everything we could have wanted out of that. I'm gonna take it back to your profession. As a therapist, what would you say is the best benefit of receiving help from someone with your qualifications? Or your...
Wait, say it one more time. It cut out. Sorry.
As you're a therapist, what would you say are some benefits of receiving help from someone with your qualifications? Obviously, not everyone can afford therapy, but...
Right. Good question. I always say therapy should not just be for people who have money. So, like, for years and years, I worked at a nonprofit, and, like, I would have clients who would pay $2, literally. So, like, there's Catholic charities, there's Jewish Family Service, I personally don't send people away. Like, I'll work with someone's insurance, and I'll work on a sliding scale. So, just an FYI. Second thing is, what is the advantage of, say, someone coming to see me, right?
Yes.
That's the question? Yeah. So, I think the fact that I am someone, like, I'm thinking of all the kids I saw this week, a lot of teenagers, that I'm just somebody safe, right? And I create my office to be, quote, this sacred space where you can talk, we can question, we can share, and people can, quote, be really intimate, and kind of talk about, oh my God, sometimes I just want to kill my mother, and obviously they don't really want to kill their mother, hopefully, right? But it's like a safe place to kind of explore, unwind, process, I use that word a lot, process their information, because I believe that we're not supposed to keep it all inside. I believe that we're not supposed to do this journey of life alone. And the thing I get scared about your generation is I feel like, I use this line a lot, but in a community of so much abundance, what I see is so many kids suffering in, depression, anxiety, loneliness, and then they'll go into the drugs and alcohol. But it doesn't usually start with drugs and alcohol. It starts with the loneliness, whatever. So the advantages, and I'm a family therapist, which means like I have my master's in social work, and then I did another degree in family and marriage counseling. So like today, I had this girl yesterday that I was worried about. Today I had her family in. We look at the whole system. The whole family becomes a system, like a group. And I look at like, it's nobody's fault, but how do we work and tweak the system so it works better for everyone? I love it. I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people in the world that I get to do what I do.
That's so great that you do.
So can I ask you why this subject tweaked your interest?
Um,
Because
well, I suppose one of the biggest, and this is one of the basically oldest crimes in history, but today is one of the most ignored. I feel from what I've researched that certain issues about domestic abuse or rape are just ignored or are kind of unintentionally covered up by myths, often focused on placing the blame on people such as the victims um, or just kind of trying to
yeah,
sidestep
interesting.
the issue. And uh, I suppose just the most important thing for someone like me to do is to, like just a normal person, just to raise awareness for this.
Good
Yeah.
for you. Yeah. Do you have any sisters?
Yes, two younger sisters.
Well, this is a good thing you're doing. Sorry, I think you had another question. I interrupted. Sorry.
Just one more. Just as somewhat of a closer, how exactly would you define sexual or domestic violence? How would someone know if this is applies to them, or just obviously surprisingly confusing? Uh,
Um, okay, good question. I mean, at least with domestic violence, what I see is it doesn't start out sort of like, I'm sure you've heard, like the myth, but it's, all of a sudden it'll come out like, the husband trying, I'm going to use the man because that's sort of what I know more. But oh no, I had a case last year. I forgot about that. Oh, she was crazy. She would totally abuse him verbally and kind of physically. She was yeah. But let's use the man for a second. Like, let's say he comes home from work, he had a really tough day, kids are too loud, he's irritated by that, he has a few drinks, and the first time, he smacks her. And then before you know it, what I usually find is that the woman will start engaging back. Sounds weird, and then that's how it escalates. So I can't believe you just hit me, and then she'll smack him back, and then 9 times out of 10, the woman's smaller than the man, and you can imagine what happens.
mm-hmm.
So I think, and then, I had a case going on right now. I have a case that the court had to get involved in because, like, my client she didn't tell me about it for the longest time. And then one day I'm like, wait, what did you just say? She's like, oh, my husband pushed me and I fell. And I'm like, do you have a bruise? Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're talking about a whole different thing here. What was amazing to me was she'd just grown accustomed to it. So that's where, it took me a long time, but unfortunately statistics show that, like, once it starts, you got to get help. Otherwise it can go really bad. And this guy just drank too much one day, and luckily she trusted me enough that she called the police on him, thank God. And now, and I always look at it from two ways. One, it's just terrible to the person it's happening to, but it's equally as horrific to those poor children who are viewing it, right? I always tell all my clients, I will always advocate for your children, even if they're not my client, because they're always in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if that answers it. Wait, what was the other part of it? Sorry.
No, that was it. Just defining sexual or domestic violence. Naming some
I guess
factors of it.
Define it. I would say anybody who threatens verbally, physically, touches someone, and they don't want it. Right? If they don't, we all have our boundaries. I'm really big into boundaries. We have our physical boundaries, and we have our emotional places. People don't like to be called stupid, right? I don't know anyone who likes to be called stupid, right? And so what is, domestic violence or whatever we're calling all this is really, you violate me on any level that feels to me like you're violating me, then we've gotten over the line.
There's a very fine line.
Yes. Yeah, and it is. And then that's why I'm a big alcohol and drugs alter, and that's why so many cases of sexual, like rape and all that stuff, happen on college campuses so much. Because people, I don't know. I just cringe when I hear those stories, like 5 guys, they raped a girl and she was unconscious. Like, oh my God, right? It's just like, what is wrong with the world?